What happens next when Festus comes? That's what we're going to find out today in Acts 25. Well, 3 days after Festus arrives to the area, he went to Jerusalem from Caesarea. Because again, Caesarea is going to be that port city. It's also probably where Pontius Pilate hung out. It's beautiful. All the trade was going in and out of Caesarea at that time. And it was a chief administrative area. So anyone in leadership, probably in Rome, would come in and out through Caesarea or stay in Caesarea. But now we had Felix, right? Paul's being kept there. Felix wanted a bribe. Paul kept talking to him about Jesus and the resurrection. We don't know if any good it did, but Felix gets called back to Rome, and now we have Festus. Festus is in the area. He goes to Jerusalem. He wants to see the chief priests, the main people in the leadership of the temple. They are still angry about Paul. I mean, how many years are they this angry about Paul? It's been a long time, and they're still as livid. They're still wanting to stop Paul from being on this earth. They meet with Festus, and they tell him that all these things that Paul has done, you know, you've ever heard about that situation? I always think about, like, when I was a kid, and we did something wrong or something happened, and two siblings would take off running back to mom so that they could tell the other, this is what that person did, so they can explain their story first, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to hijack Festus right there at the beginning. We want you to send him to Jerusalem so we can kill him on the way. I wonder what happened to those people who were like not going to eat until they killed Paul. Are they really hungry right now? Are they the ones waiting in the desert? I don't know. But anyway, they wanted to kill him. And so they need to get Paul out of this garrison area and get him traveling. And this is a grudge. This is a serious grudge. Removing Paul from this earth because you're mad at what he said. They're mad because he used to be one of them. And now he's doing all this work for Jesus. And that's what it is. It's easy for one of these for them to think, oh, these followers of Christ, one of our own, because you even see it today. People think like Christians are stupid, uneducated, rubes, and now you got some educated person, and now they became a Christian. That's not how this goes. I remember at one point when I was friends with a person who is an atheist, and she goes, well, my family was Catholic, but I was smart, basically, and left the Catholic Church and Christianity because we don't believe in stupid things. And that's how conversion, I converted away from the church. And I said, oh, well, you might not know this about me, but I converted to the church. I was an atheist, hardcore, and I became a Christian. And I had a good science education. I understood science. I wasn't stupid. I mean, I don't have a PhD or anything like that. And that didn't fit her MO, right? People don't become Christians. They leave Christianity. And so it upset her greatly when I told her this. So that's the idea, that one of them became this person for Christ. And now they're just even more mad about him than almost anyone else. And he was sent out. I mean, he was the guy who was supposed to haul back all these Christians who escaped back to Jerusalem to be tried and killed. And now he's turned on us. So they're probably more mad than just about anybody. Anyway, so Festus says to Paul, who's being kept in Caesarea, if I had to be kept in a place, Caesarea would be the prime location. But he said that he intends himself to go to Jerusalem. And because Festus is trying to protect his rights as a Roman citizen, I can't let anything happen to you because you're just not some Joe Schmo off the street. Like I said, not everyone was a citizen and most of the Jews were not citizens. This was a rare thing. He has to protect them. And he probably also wanted to be paid off too, because that's just kind of how it goes. He rejected this whole situation. He refused to grant the Jewish leaders what they asked. He knew that they were probably looking to kill him. He understood it, and he understands they're really mad. So it says that he noticed in chapter 5, he said, well, let the men of authority among you come with me, And if there's anything wrong with this man, let's bring charges against him. Let's do it the right way. And even if I'm not convinced of it, let's just do this the right way. Felix was probably told the whole deal, but Festus understood that this was a plot. This is kind of the difference, I think, between them. So he stayed about 8 to 10 days and then went back to Caesarea, took the seat of the tribunal, and ordered Paul to be brought in. And when Paul came in, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him and started bringing these charges again, things that they couldn't even prove. I mean, like I said, this is the worst trial ever. And Paul again argued his defense. It's more of Paul's strength. I mean, this is the thing he's good at. He's able to talk and debate people. And he says, I'm not against the law of the Jews. I'm not against the temple. I'm not against Caesar. I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong to them. I've not done anything wrong to you. And then Festus says that he's wishing to do the Jews a favor, that he's hoping that he can, I think, settle this out. But then said to Paul, well, do you want to go up to Jerusalem and be tried on these charges before me? And yeah, well, I'll go. I can be tried. So it said that Festus wanted to do the Jews in this case a favor. He didn't find anything wrong with what Paul did. And he says, well, hey, do you want to go back to Jerusalem and stand trial in front of all of these, people? Maybe this is what you want, right? Maybe you want to do this. And Paul says, you know what I'm doing here? I'm standing before Caesar's tribunal where I should be tried. I should be tried under Roman law, not according to temple law, because I didn't do anything wrong. You saw for yourself, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't try to escape death. I didn't try to escape you. I didn't do anything. So the only one I want to appeal to, Caesar. I want to talk to the main guy. Oh, so then Festus confers with his council and says, okay, well, you made an appeal to Caesar. Caesar, you shall go. Boy, what a phrase that is. Most people didn't, first of all, want to go to Caesar because in this case, this is Nero, not the nicest guy in the world, really a horrible human being. But also, it's expensive. They didn't want many people. They were sort of expected as leaders of regions to take care of things. But anyway, so Paul's moving up again. He's going to talk to more people, have more experiences with other people. So then Agrippa II shows up. This is going to be the son of the king that killed James. And this is going to be someone who's in charge of the temple. So he has jurisdiction over this temple. He is going to be, his uncle was the one who beheaded John the Baptist. So this is the whole Herod family. And he's going to be the expert on Jewish law, on what's going on with the Jewish people. I think, like I said, Festus was probably just confused. Like, I don't know what it is you did. I don't even really understand this. So Agrippa shows up, and Bernice also arrives and says hi to Festus, and then they stay there for many days. Festus laid Paul's case before the king and said, you know this guy, you know what's going on, you understand the way, you understand the Jewish people, the temple, the elders, you understand all this. I don't really get any of this. And it's not our custom really to do this. And so he's making a defense, right? He's bringing it up and we talked about this. His accusers came. I saw no charges that could be brought. I saw no evils that he really did. I couldn't prove their point. They couldn't prove what they were saying to me. And so this dispute just seems kind of with your own faith with Jesus who was dead. Paul asserted that he's alive, something to do with resurrection, blah, blah, blah. And this is what's making him so mad, is that he has to do all this investigation. He's like not even Jewish. I'm sure he's like saying, I don't care about any of this. So that's why Agrippa II is there to sort of settle this religious squabble. And then he says, I asked him if he wanted to go back to Jerusalem, and he says he wants to go talk to Caesar himself. So Agrippa said to Festus, well, I'd like to hear from him, myself. I'm sure this was a curiosity as well. So he says, well, okay, tomorrow you'll get a chance to hear it. So again, Paul's stature and who he's talking to, another big person. he is talking now to the leader of the Jews in Jerusalem underneath the Romans, right? So this is interesting. Now, the problem is that Bernice was Agrippa's sister. Oh boy. And so any bad thing that you might think, is that what's happening here? Anyway, so the next day, Agrippa and Bernice come. There's great pomp and circumstance and celebration and honorifics, and this is a big to-do. Festus brings out Paul and says, "This is King Agrippa. All of us want to hear about this whole thing, about the Jews who petitioned to me, both in Jerusalem and here, and all this shouting, and I found nothing that deserves death, but, you wanted to appeal to the emperor, and I decided to go ahead and do that. But anyway, let's hear this out." I'm asking King Agrippa, essentially, if he can kind of sort this out for me. And so it's funny because I've slammed a lot of Herod's family, but this guy seems kind of interested. He really wants to hear what's going on. He wants to understand what this whole thing is about. Anyway, some people even kind of slam Festus at this point because according to Roman law, this has nothing to do with Roman law. He shouldn't have even been concerned about this. He shouldn't have kept Paul in prison at all. Again, this has nothing to do with Rome, but I think they're just so puzzled about why people are so mad about this religious squabble. So anyway, Agrippa hears Paul for himself, finds out what's really going on. This is a reminder, like I said, that the next person is going to be Nero. Nero considered himself to be a god. He was in charge of the entire religion. This is going to be a problem because Jesus is Lord. And right now, Nero thinks he is God. So this is going to get interesting. And that ends chapter 25. We're going to find out what Paul says to Agrippa and Festus in this next chapter. Boy, this is something else, isn't it? We are moving up in story and hearing more and more about Paul's appeal to people. And what I want to meditate on is that when you think about Paul's situation in Act 25, it's giving us some time to reflect on how often we find ourselves at the mercies of other people's decisions, whether it's bosses and companies or systems or whatever it is, unfair. And maybe we're accused of something and it is unfair too. Paul is stuck again, but not again because of anything he did, but because powerful people can't decide what to do with him. God is not absent in this waiting. And I'm going to meditate about how God is working behind the scenes. It's funny because Paul spent all this time traveling place to place to place to meet up with people, and now God is bringing people to him. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe has to do with Paul's age or something. I don't know. But I'm going to consider how Paul's trust in God and his timing and his placement reveals a deep faith that God doesn't need perfect circumstances to act. And even when it's a situation of a kind of a pagan religion, political messes, people who are just mad for the sake of being mad, whatever it is, God's plan is still moving forward. And to sit into that truth and let it challenge, I guess, my assumptions about how God uses people and how we move when we are being used by God. Sometimes we're just sitting. And what I'm going to pray about is that idea that he works when things look unfair, unclear, when we're in a political football, when we are involved in powers that are bigger than we are, that we have no control over. His purpose never wavers, and I want to have trust in God that even when I'm inactive, he is active. Even when I'm stuck, he is looking out over everything. And to be patient in that process. Paul believed that nothing was going to interrupt God's will, and that's what happened. And so I want to always remain in God's hands like that. So I hope for that kind of wisdom, that when I'm surrounded, confused, persecuted, to give that courage to speak the truth and grace, even if the audience is skeptical, hostile, amused, whatever it is, that I, can see God's fingerprint in that. It might seem far from holy when we're in places like courtrooms or political battles or broken relationships or people who thought of us one way and are expecting something else. But God will always bring about good in everything. And what I'm going to share with others is that idea that if you've been helped by someone who didn't even know they were helping you, that's what we kind of see in all of this. Felix was helping Paul. Festus is helping Paul. Agrippa is helping Paul, and even Bernice. None of these people believers in any sort of way, but they became part of God's protection plan for Paul. And we share with other people that reminder that God uses anyone in and outside of the church, in and outside of faith, to do miraculous things, even protecting us, even helping our own message come through. It encourages someone who may be feeling discouraged that just because the right person didn't come along to help you doesn't mean that that wrong person isn't from God also. Provision isn't always neat. Help from God isn't always a straight line, but it's always faithful. It's always bold, and God will always be there to help us in surprising ways. And, that it's never late. It is always at the right time. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Appreciate you watching, listening. If you have anything to say to me, you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Please know that I have websites for all my podcasts, so you can look at startwithsmallsteps.com, The Bible in Small Steps with God, Buzz, Blossom, and Squeak. They all have their own websites. You can find me at Jill from the North Woods on YouTube and in podcast apps of your choice. And I hope that you're out there listening and kind of soaking this in one small step at a time.